everyone. Just want to take a few minutes to follow up on the poem that you read for the discussion. And the poem was Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. So, if you go through this poem, we basically have a description of war. And at one specific point in the description, one of the soldiers is gassed and dies. Right? So that's what's happening. So, bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. So those first four lines are describing like how they have to walk, what physical condition they're in, until they finally turn to start walking back towards where they're staying, their camp. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, meaning all were hurt in some way. All blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind them. So it's almost like they're losing their senses, you know, they all went lame, they're blind, they're drunk with fatigue, so they're tired, they're even deaf to the gas shells that are falling behind them. And then all of a sudden, we see the action. Gas, gas, quick boys. That's what someone is saying to them. An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. That's the gas, like a sea, like he's drowning in it. What a very powerful comparison right there. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. So he's haunted by this image of this man dying. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. And if you look there, the note, remember the Latin phrase, it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. That it's like the ultimate thing, that it's the ultimate thing, the most heroic act is to die for your country. And the speaker here is saying, if you had experienced this, if you had watched this man die, if he haunted your dreams like he does mine, and you could see all of these horrible images, I mean, just the way he describes all of it, you know, from the very beginning, bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knocking, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched to sleep, many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf to even the hoots, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the man floundering like a man in fire or lime. Then how he sees him dying, dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. I mean, these images are so powerful. Smothering dreams. You too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like the skin is melting off of him, right? Like a devil's sick of sin. You could hear every jolt, the blood coming gargling up from froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of bile. I mean, these comparisons are strong and powerful and not pleasant. And he is saying, if you had experienced all of that and had these hellish nightmares like I do of this man we could not save, you would not tell children who are searching for glory, to make a difference, to be exalted with praise. You would never tell them that it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country, because you would never want a child to grow up and experience what I have experienced. So it's a bit of an anti-war poem, actually, but it's very real. It's very honest, and the imagery in it is really what makes it so astounding. Like, it's, I don't know, I haven't read very many things that capture with such economy of words, such few words, can capture such a gruesome scene with exactly the right kind of tone to match what he wants us to get from it. It's really the imagery. And some of the rhyme too, it's interesting how the rhyme scheme keeps up if you look through it. And how that last stanza, especially, if in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in. And then he goes through this list, and it's like he just keeps going until he gets to that the final part of the thought. You know, he adds all of these horrible things, these horrible images and comparisons into that final sentence. It's one thought, and he packs so much into it to just continue, to drive that point home even further. All of these grotesque and horrible things that you experience in war, and then hits us with that line in Latin that thankfully is translated for us. Anyway, I think it's just a very well-crafted poem, because the imagery and the comparisons and the tone work together so quickly to really drive home the whole message of the poem. Anyway, if you have any questions, make sure you include those in your journal response. Anything that you would like to add on, make sure you include that in the journal response. And of course, if there's anything that you want to talk to me about in more depth, of course, let me know. Otherwise, you guys are free to move on.